it's like disorienting. It's actually disorienting. It's like deafening. It's like cacophonous. Like there's so much garbage that you need to like sift through in order to get like some nugget of truth. And the reality of the matter is that like social media companies, they don't necessarily like care for the well-being or the mental state of the people using them.
Absolutely not.
It's just like it's a profit machine, and a lot of people don't understand that, and they're doing their job. I mean, look, social media's done great. Like
I try to explain this to people that like, because people are like, well, I hate social media. Like it's social, like the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of these things, there's nothing wrong with them. They're actually amazing tools. Yeah. Like it has connected me with people who like botanists in the area that I've been able to meet and have discussions, or that I can follow them and they'll post like really great, like you do find great information, but it's how it's used that is the issue. Or like Facebook has really great groups that you want to learn about South Florida lizards. There's probably a Facebook group about it that like you can go on and meet people who have knowledge in this topic, and so it could be used in great ways, or not really even just to learn about like the natural world, but like in other like ways to connect with people. But then you have people that will spread disinformation.
Well, yeah, and I feel like becoming part of an echo chamber as well online is also not it's not a good way to like conduct yourself. It's not a good way to like receive information as well. When you consistently receive information that only validates the perspective that you've had, it becomes like almost tribal on the internet, where it's like, if you do not agree with my stance and my perspective on this thing, then like, you know, you're becoming ostracized, and like people will look at you different. And because it's like it lacks the interpersonal aspect online, people are a lot more nasty and like lot more
it's a lot easier for people to lash out and say mean things when they don't have to do it face to face.
For sure.
But I think some of that too is intentional, right?
On part of the social media companies.
I don't even know, like, it sounds so conspiratorial, but no, just like to create that cacophony, to create that tribalism. Like it's deflecting us from the things that are actively like need like urgent action, right? Yeah. Because we're busy arguing about whatever stupid like internet.
Trump's hat on Saturday.
Trump's hat, yeah.
Well,
I mean, but whose fault is that? You know, because at the end of the day, it's like the fault is on part of the consumer, because we're the ones who are feeding into this like nonsense.
Right.
So where did this come from? Like, are people exploiting that? Those are questions that like
it's
are
a shared
needed to be
100% between the government, the companies, and the consumers.
For sure.
Like it's always a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
But it's hard to just say like this is the person that needs to do this. It's kind of all of them need to.
But I think increasingly like people taking a step back, like how is social media impacting me?
Yeah.
What am I what am I putting out in the world? Like, is this making the world better? What am I contributing to the conversation? Like people, I think increasingly are asking those questions and kind of trying to remove themselves. And I think that we've seen, just, you know, with elections and stuff, how crazy things have gotten.
I also feel like more and more I've just stopped watching a lot of the news because of like misinformation. Like when I watch the news now, I feel like I could see Will Ferrell sitting at the table.
100%.
Doing like it's a skit, and I'm like, is this like the news has turned into like satire and like
of itself? That's kind of
like Kurt Vonnegut literally is writing this right now or something that. Like it blows me.
Kurt Vonnegut was writing it, but it's not.
I know, but it's like literally what he's so sad about what is happening is actually happening.
And that's the worst part, was Kurt Vonnegut wrote about it in the 40s, and even like George Orwell, Ray Bradbury, like it's like, but to this extent, like, isn't that crazy? Where it's like, you know,
where we know what's happening and we're still letting it happen.
Like it's like voluntary ignorance. It's like I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is crazy to see like the persistence of that issue through the 40s and 30s into now, in a day and age where, like, you know, Kurt Vonnegut or people like George Orwell, all these satirists, like, could not have even like began to imagine the dangers of like the spread of misinformation and the spread of like nonsense, I guess.
Carl Sagan has like a lot of really interesting things to say about that, though, too.
Carl Sagan?
Yeah, interestingly enough.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll look that up. Yeah.
If you're interested. I just wanted to say, like, it almost pains me that we have to frame this question like, do you believe in climate change? Because it's not a question of believing in it to me, and I don't want to offend anybody by saying that, but to me, it's there. I believe there is a scientific consensus, and I am not a scientist, so I'm going to go with what the scientists say, right?
Sure.
And the consensus is that yes, like we are creating
emissions, pollution,
impacting
the climate.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And I think that the media a lot just sugarcoats, like if they even talk about it at all, and that's something that is very concerning to me. Like if you just watch your like regular news, like I was home visiting my parents, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and I was like, I'm really worried about the world, and they were like, oh, pish posh, like things like imagine what it was like in the 60s during like the missile crisis and stuff like that, like you know, like we're fine, like things have been much worse in the past, and I'm like are you paying attention? Like I am very, very worried, right? Like I am, and I don't feel like that's adequately covered in the news, and I feel like ecological things aren't adequately covered in the news. Like when that train derailed in Ohio, right? Everyone's like, "Ooh, train derailed," and like that was it. Like there is a story here that we can see is going to become a story, a bigger story, because nobody is acknowledging like the.
You think like a sense of urgency was lacked in the media to like really like?
I think that to me, I think that it's almost like they just want to calm people. Like if people knew how bad it was,
for sure.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, we just had the gas shortage, which they told everybody like if everyone takes only what they need, we will not have an issue. And then Miami goes, I'm gonna buy all the gas I can possibly get.
Yeah.
Because you said that, and so like they're also like, is that. Like, what would people in Miami do if they knew that, like, things were over?
Like saltwater intrusion, right? Like, hey, we might not have water, right? Like, maybe don't buy a house here because your property
out
will
of
be,
luck.
like,
Or don't create this giant development in this area where they're, like, elevating a whole section that's gonna make it okay for them for a while in these new housing areas, but all of the surrounding existing ones, it's going to flood worse than it ever has. And then eventually they're also going to have the same problems at some point, and because they're going to be building there, it means that that's even less impervious area for the water to go into the aquifer and replenish it. So that means that they're not going to have any drinking water sooner than already. It's already like intruded so fast in certain areas where like you have a canal, and there's like you can see the progress if you look at the data, like how much, like we will not have drinking water in 10 years in South Florida, like and we're just trying to like put walls
it to the wayside
underground to stop it, but then continue developing.
Knows that.
No,
like
sure.
They do know it. They do know it so well, but the public hearings, like it's just so much, like the developers have so much money and so much say in it that they'll just push the boundaries of development constantly into these natural areas just because it's money, Like,
well, I mean, it's funny. I also think that there's a culture of boredom. They're like, oh, you don't want to pay attention to this because it's too boring. And like there's the media is part of that, right? Of creating like, oh, like let's not cover this story because we're not going to have audience for it or whatever. Like,
and it's so controversial because like the restoration project for the Everglades is the most expensive restoration project that has ever happened.
Wow.
And so we're spending all of this money trying to like restore the Everglades, but then we're also just continuing to like move the boundary closer inward, and also not like continue to. There's a lot of stakeholders where like people's safety and flooding is still important, so you can't just have the land go back to like its natural flow, because that means like people who have been here will have flooding and health issues and all of these things. And it's at this point it's just like so complicated where it's at, where like the best option, if this is all that matters, is this. The best option, if this is the only thing that matters, is this. But they can't, because there's so many stakeholders that are important, like people that are here now. It is important for like their safety. So at this point, it's so complicated that like we can't even make the best solution because it's just so contradictory what each of the stakeholders wants.
Yeah.
So
Huge conflict of interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
So
Yeah. Let me hit you guys with another question. Hold on. Okay. We already talked about that. Okay, so how would you describe the state of environmental conservation in today's day and age in as much detail as possible?
I think it depends on the scale and where you're talking about.
We can start at like a communal level, like in the community, like
In like the community of Miami Beach.
yeah.
So the city itself has a Department of Sustainability and Resiliency, and like I don't know how many cities have that. So like that's great. And so you do see more of those kinds of offices popping up. And then they have their limits with goals for the cities, and